Hi, this is Michael Bean, and this is your myfreeactingclass.com lesson for Monday, August the 31st. Today, we are going to talk camera. We're going to talk camera technique. We are going to watch your fabulous videos that you sent of the last week's Actors Challenge. Thank you so much for the 4 people who sent that in. And later this week, I will pick a scene for the next Actors Challenge, and we'll get that up and available probably on Wednesday is my plan. And this time I will put that right on the myfreeactingclass.com website so that just so that it's more accessible. I know a couple of people messaged me and they're like, I forgot to download the thing. Oh my God, where do I find it? So I'll make that really easy to do that for practice. So very quickly, let's zip through a basic camera technique and talk about it in using those of you who've still left your video on to talk about frame and eye light and eye line, and then we will look specifically at some videos. So let's start with Christina's, because here we go, spotlight. Right, so we've got a little bit of eye light, not a lot, but there's some light reflecting her eyes. The camera is level with her eyes, right? It's not above or below. There's a clean or neutral backdrop. Whereas if we look at Candy, for instance, she's very strongly backlit. Right, so the light is instead of the light being behind the camera, the light is behind her, which makes her like, but it also means that that we don't see the light reflected in her eyes. So eye light and having the camera at eye level, very, very important. And hopefully you'll see that when I start showing you the examples of the videos. Thank you so much to Christina, to Eve, to Candy, and to Melissa. 3 of 4 of whom, maybe 4 of 4 of whom, are, so all 4 are here today for being brave and letting us use their work, to talk about some of these concepts. So hopefully that will be helpful to you, and I'm looking forward to continuing this practice. And anytime we get, at least 4 of those videos, then I'll be able to do a lesson like this and then go over that in detail. Right, so eye light, eye line, frame is what the camera is seeing, and so everybody right now is in approximately a medium close-up. What I see a lot in tapes is that somebody does it like this back here, and this is not bad or wrong. But what happens is you just don't see as much detail because you're not seeing as much of the eyes. Whereas if you move right up close into that medium close-up here, then you will seem like a much better actor because we can see so much more visually of what's going on. You'll see in one of the self-tapes, there's a pretty harsh side light on one of them. So like the side of somebody's head is lit. Having that light reflect in your eyes is super, super important, right? So Moira, am I saying your name right? Yeah, I am. Okay, good. Right, again, really, so very strong side light, backlight. If the front of her face is not lit, her eyes are not lit. One of the things that I've seen be most effective for eye light, and I'd never played with this before doing these lessons, but a ring light, like an inexpensive ring light, and you can probably find one at a secondhand store. Right? They make them for ladies to do their makeup. Or you can get one like a ring light on a tripod, with the holder for your phone, for like $30 or $40 on Amazon. A friend of mine sent me a link to one fairly recently that she uses, and I've just seen it have really good results for something simple. And something super portable, like something you can just like take with you anywhere. And you're like, yep, that's a piece of blank wall. I got my ring light. I swap my phone in there. I'm good to go. So those are that's the like very quick. Somebody right next to me has suddenly begun using a chainsaw. Can you hear what I'm saying? Okay. Okay. Great. I was concerned that you were getting a lot of chainsaw noise, but now I'm very grateful for my excellent microphone, which is one of the other things that's worth talking about. Again, from the fabulous Rekha Sharma, who was our guest a couple of months ago, you can get a very inexpensive lavalier mic. So lavalier means like the little ones that clip on here that plugs into your phone. Again, she got hers from Amazon. She's like, yeah, any of these are good. And she's got like a pair of them, and they both plug into the phone. So one that clips on her, one that clips on the reader, that she can adjust the volume for. She's like, I just clip mine up here and I clip the readers down at their belt. And then I don't have to, I don't need something fancy where I can adjust the levels, because I can just put it on the reader down lower. And then there's less volume there. You'll see that audio and lighting, both very, very important when we're looking at self-tapes. So what I want to do is I want to show you these 4 self-tapes that we're going to look at today. I want to talk to you a little bit about technology. I pulled up something called a program called Handbrake and a program called The Actors Lines, both of which I've talked about in class a little bit before, but I use for my self-tapes, and I find them very useful. And we're going to use people's work as examples, and then when we get to this, hopefully I want to have time to talk about the acting portion, a little bit of it, and even workshop, like just one moment in these scenes with our 4 folks, especially since we've got them here today, and we can both see their different takes on the characters, and then hopefully workshop that one little moment. So you'll get to see some of the cues that I use when I'm working with an actor, and hopefully some of that will be useful to you as well. And then Caden, I promise later this week, I'll do like, I'll get one of these lessons where there's just like fun stuff, and you can like practice doing like weird stuff on camera, because I love doing those too. And I've got all these tiny little scripts. Right now, tomorrow, I've got Cassandra Ebner scheduled to join us. Cass is somebody who took my adult acting class for a couple of years. My adult class, by the way, right now is so amazing. Like, these people have been coming every Monday for the last like 4 or 5 months. Like, COVID has just, and Zoom has made it accessible for people to stay like super consistent. And for the first time in like the 3 years that I've been regularly teaching adults, I can give everybody in class like a 6 or an 8-page scene, and have them come in with it like down cold and like so well prepared that we can actually workshop all 8 pages in the space of 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes, which is just like, God, it makes me happy as a teacher, right? The thing that you keep hearing from casting directors about preparation, also as a teacher is just so pleasing, because it means that actors come in and I'm like, cool, so instead of rehearsing together, I can do the part where we get curious and explore and actually like dig into the craft and to some of these individual things. So that's why I'm hoping we can play a little bit with that with those of you who are brave enough to send me a self-tape. And Deborah tried but had technology fail, so I'm not gonna be able to show you Deborah's, but we're gonna like trust that it was amazing. All right, so let's take a look at some of those tapes. Screen. So here's Eve's self-tape. She taped for Amy.
Yeah, well, you could still help me groom him.
So beautiful eye light. Like, look how clear that light is. The background's nice and neutral. She got this down under 10 megabytes, which meant that she could email it to me directly. And notice that the quality is still just fine. Like, at least here on my laptop, I can expand it to the size of the entire screen, and maybe it's like a touch grainy, but only just a touch. So not a problem, to send in something like this, and it would be interesting. Eve, what program did you use to make the file small?
1 minute, I'm just gonna go to my home screen and then I can get the name of it.
Okay, yeah, no, just curious if you'd be able to share that with everybody else.
It's called Video Compressor.
Video Compressor, okay.
Video Compress, yeah.
And also the program that I talked about the other day, it's called Handbrake, open source video transcoder, which means that it's free. It's free, like it's actually free. It's not super user friendly, right? It's got like a whole bunch of different options, but again, you could find a YouTube tutorial, and spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes educating yourself about this, and then you would be able to do it forever. It is not a difficult program to use. It's just that initially when you open it up, you'll see these menus and be like, all the numbers, what do they mean? You don't have to know what they mean. You can go on YouTube and listen to somebody else know what they mean. And once you figure out your settings, you probably never have to mess with it again. So I will put that into the chat window as well. And even if you would type in the name of your program, that's Handbrake. Something about Eve's tape. You would never know that she's reading with herself. I assume that, Eve, you had yourself like recorded on a phone or something like that. Yeah, so she used herself as the reader. It's not ideal. Later in the tape, you'll hear, that she ends up having to like really race through her lines, and it ends up sounding like a really interesting acting choice because she has the volume turned down on herself enough as the reader, and she's being like simple enough as the reader that you can't really tell that it's a recorded voice. But it did mean that the timing was pretty tight. Eve?
I normally would not do that, but I literally had no one,
Yeah.
And I wanted to send you it, so.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's a fantastic example of like what's possible, because people are like, oh, I couldn't do it because, and so I just wanted to show them like, yeah, you actually can. And if they're like, wow, she's amazing, but have her do it again with, an actual reader, like that's a possible thing. Better than not sending anything at all, I don't think. So then we've got, this is Candy's tape. Candy also recorded herself as Amy. You can see this is the one with the really harsh side light. So it looks like her camera is foggy or milky in some way, and that's either because the lens is dirty or because of this like harsh light that is sort of coming in, basically going into the camera instead of onto her face. So I assume that this is just like the spot with the best and cleanest background, at wherever you were taping, Candy. But definitely want to play with the lighting for next time.
I'm Candy Sparks. I'm gonna get ready. Don't look at my hands. Don't you listen to that, Phoenix? His name isn't even Phoenix.
And so something that I really want you to notice here is how much louder her reader is than she is. And so this is a very normal thing. It's a very easy mistake to make with a self-tape is if you're doing it in person, your reader is basically there holding the phone, which means they're right by the microphone. In this case, possibly she just didn't sort of check the audio in the room. If the reader was on a device, maybe the device was turned up too high, but the reader, crisp, clear, you can hear every word. Her, it sounds like she's, acting at the bottom of a well. Right? So she's probably in like a big room with like flat walls, and that's, bouncing the sound around. And so, Candy, you would probably want to set up closer to your microphone next time. And I hope this is, useful to you. You said that this was your first self-tape, and that's a really vulnerable space to be in. So like, I just want to say like, rock on you. Like there's so much right about this tape. The framing is right. The background is right. So much of this is clean, so I hope it's all right that I'm saying, and here's the next thing you would add to it. Then we've got a couple that were on YouTube. I'm not going to show you the entire video, I think, because there are so many things that I want to cover in such a short span of time. So we've got Christina's.
Hi, my name is Christina Moon, and I will be reading for Georgia.
So Christina and Candy both decided to start with a slate. In general, I would say that if your audition says specifically slate, then you include a slate. It's a good idea to think about which casting directors have sort of which preferences. Jackie Lind, for instance, is like, always lead with the slate. I want to know, like who you are. Tiffany Mack is like, always have the slate at the very end or as a like separate file, because I already know who you are, and I want them to see the character right away. And each of those casting directors said that here in these lessons with total conviction, right to the camera, like, why would anybody do anything else? And both of them had a completely opposite preference. So there's no way to game the system and know exactly what anybody wants. But if they ask for a slate, do one. And if they don't ask for one, my recommendation is don't. If you really want to be on the safe side, then you tape one anyway, even if you're not going to do one. So that if your agent's like, hey, actually they want a slate, you're like, good, I've already got one on the day in the wardrobe, with the same lighting, easy, easy.
I might do it. Do you want to give me a hand? Would you want to see the body Phoenix? His name isn't even Phoenix. Yeah, well, you can still have him blooming. It's...
Right, so we've got the framing is great. It's landscape, it's wide. She could be closer to camera. You see, we've got all the space over her head, and if she was standing closer or had the camera closer to her, we'd probably see more of her eyes, more detail. But there's great eye light in this tape, right? Like, look at that light reflecting her eyes. So whatever she's done in terms of setting up her lighting, it's really helping pop her eyes, and that's going to make it seem like there's more feeling in the tape. The audio, she's louder and clearer than her reader, so she definitely got that. Not even talking about performance yet. And then we've got Melissa's tape.
You want to give me a hand? You don't want to say goodbye to Phoenix? Yeah, well, we can still have him for a while.
Right, so good eye light, clean background. Melissa, you probably want to think about what's called nose room, which is if you're on this side and looking to this side, then there's all of this blank space. And so really, you probably would have wanted to like put yourself over here. So like either be in the center or just slightly off center on the opposite direction. That's how they set it up in film and TV. So if I'm doing a scene and I'm in medium close up and I'm talking to somebody over here, then I'm gonna leave space on this side. And if I end up doing this, so then what happens is you end up looking at this background, even though there's really nothing to look at, it draws the eye. And that's just because of the way that we're used to framing. At least that's my guess. That's sort of the common framing. Now, something that I hope that is all right if I talk about your, which CD likes it rather at the end or in a separate file. That was Tiffany Mack. Tiffany Mack prefers it as at the very end or as a separate file. And I think that if you are, that usually, especially these days with Zoom auditions or taped auditions, they will often give extremely explicit directions about slate and performance. Alistair Abel, who is with us on Friday, said, I give incredibly specific instructions and people don't follow them. And I know right from the slate that they're not paying attention, right? So make sure that you read those detailed instructions and you actually follow them. If you are doing an audition, and I mean, if you're going out for an indie film or student film, they might not have those details, but still. And so then if we want to talk a little bit about performance, so there's the technical aspect of it, and that's part of why you come to class, so you can see those technical aspects, right? We've got nose room, which you can see, means that like basically we end up looking at this fold, even though there's nothing to look at, right? The medium close-up, so being a little bit closer to camera, for that one. We've got the sort of fantastic, lighting, here, now and then we've got. This one here, where there were like audio problems, the framing is great. One of the things that I want you to notice about these tapes is how honest they come across in the beginning. Like just very, very simple. Yeah, there's a technical issue with the audio, but we believe her at the beginning. Like we believe that she's just coming in to have a normal conversation. She's not trying to show anybody how she's feeling. And so that's when we start talking about performance, that's what we want for film and TV. And it's been a while since I've said this, so hopefully it is useful for you to hear it again, that of course acting, we want it to both be fully expressive, and completely believable. And that's true for theater and for film. There are different technical requirements for each. We want, it takes different things technically to make it both completely expressive and completely believable in each situation. But of course they want both, right? They want you to be able to walk on water. They want you to be able to do all the things. In the theater, particularly in amateur theater or school theater, or community theater, what happens is they have to choose one. And they're like, well, choose expressiveness because I can't hear you at the back of the room. And if I can't hear you at the back of the room, then even if you're really believable and totally honest and totally feeling it, we actually can't hear you, so the story doesn't get told. And so they focus on like projection or volume or like, express the feeling more with your body or, and so then you get people who've done community theater and then they start being on film and making all these faces and being really loud because that's what they trained themselves to do. And it was effortful and they've internalized it and they're not thinking about it anymore. And at some point that was a really important, useful skill that then just gets taken out of context. And then for film and TV, if you have to choose one or the other, then you choose believable. You just make it as believable as humanly possible, which means you keep it really simple. And so Candy's, the start of Candy's tape, the start of Melissa's tape, the start of Eve's tape, really good examples of that. And so I'm really grateful to all three of you to have these examples because having students be able to hear multiple examples of the same thing, I think is really useful. So that's not just my idea, it's like, here's what it actually sounds like.
So, I'm gonna go get them ready. Do you want to give me a hand? Don't you want to say goodbye to Phoenix?
Right? Simple, believable. She's taking her time. She's waiting for a response from the other person. If we could see a light reflected in her eyes and the camera wasn't sort of like weirdly foggy, then yeah, that would be clearer, probably. The point is that we believe her off the top.
I'm gonna get him ready. Do you want to give me a hand? Don't you want to say goodbye to Phoenix?
Now, what I think is really interesting, so remember I've talked about how like decision makers these days with self-tapes, particularly with self-tapes, they can see 50 of them instead of 15, but that also sometimes means they're only watching the first, 20 seconds. And that's what people were saying 2 months ago in interviews. So now, are they watching the first 5? Are they watching the first 10? Like the more tapes they have, are they watching less of them? And so watch, if you can sort of step outside of it and go, what do I assume about this character of Amy right from those first 20 seconds? And some of it is in the choices they make, and some of it is just in who they are as a person, and some of it is in the fact that she's got her hair long or somebody else has their hair tucked back, and all of these things just tell us a story. And you can't know what the decision maker's story is about it. Acting-wise, both of the ones we've just seen, the actor comes in and they're believable. It looks like they're really talking. Now Eve had this sort of like, almost like kind of sneer on her face, which might be her going like, oh my God, I hope I'm doing this right. But it came across, as a particular opinion about Georgie at the beginning. Everything that we see, as everything the decision makers see, the casting directors see, the director, producers see, they're going to assume is part of the acting unless you tell them different. So don't tell them different. I was explaining this to a friend just today that like, it is possible for you to be full of insecurity, for you to be like, oh my God, it's horrible. And as long as you take all of that and put it into the lines and let it be seen, but let it be seen in the lines, then we can be like, wow, this character is so insecure. This character has so much inner conflict. This character has something really interesting happening. And your job is just to hold that and put it into the story, and then do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself after you've fully left the audition. All right, so we've got one more Amy that we can look at. And that was Melissa's.
I'm gonna get him ready. You want to give me a hand? You don't want to say goodbye to Phoenix?
Right, and so this one's more maternal, right? It's almost as though she's made herself, sort of the more mature one, or she's made Georgie younger, at least that's the way it reads to me. This like, come on. So different from Eve's take on it, and of course it is. For Eve, this person is almost a peer, whereas Melissa is, actually Georgie's mom's age. And so she's playing with what is real for her, and it works. And is it the right choice? Who knows? But you can't know what they want in terms of right choice. All you can do is go and say, here's my version of the story. Now, where are we? Let me snap to stop this and go to Christina. Is it okay if I offer like a modest critique of your performance, and show everybody else? Okay, great. So Christina, you've asked in the Q&A a couple of times. You said like, how do I show this feeling? And I've said to you, like, you don't show the feeling. Like, don't. Like, you don't try, don't push. Like, you just have to trust. So all of the three that we just watched, it was just them talking. And yeah, like Candy's, audio, was quiet. But all three of them, we believe it because it's really simple. Because it sounds like, hey, I'm just coming up and I'm coming to talk to you. And then with Christina's, there's a little bit of projection. There's a little bit of extra volume, which probably is just her being excited about it, honestly. Probably her just being like, yes, self-tapes, yay! Like, probably that's what's happening. But the way it comes across is as the actor trying to show us how they feel. And it's very jarring, especially in this world of film and TV, where if you have to choose between being expressive and being believable, you must choose believable. If your work is not believable, there is no chance of them saying like, you know what, let's give her another shot at it. Because they're like, oh God, like if she's stuck there, then I don't know if we'll be able to work with that. That's not fair of me to say there's no chance. I would say that if you want your best shot, like go in believable. And even like when I'm coaching big broad comedy, I will typically say, even if you're doing big broad comedy, it's a good idea, to put in a couple of lines where you're like, crazy, 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 totally honest with this one line, so that the decision makers can be like, oh, okay, right, it's a choice, right? So if we look at Christina's here.
Let me guess, Sky? Wow, how did I ever figure that one out?
Right, and so it's not huge, like she's not shouting, but she's giving it just enough extra volume that it sounds like a performance. So if I was coaching Christina, I would say, cool, just now start by doing less. Give me the just facts version, like just say the words, and then work from there. Another technical thing that I would add, Candy, I don't know who your reader was, but Candy and Melissa both, like I wish I had the chance, to, I suppose it would be boring for everybody. It's fascinating for me to get like micro, so I'll just give you the note. But both of you, your readers took pauses that were too long and it impacted your performance negatively. Right? So there, Melissa, towards the end of your scene, there were times where like you said something and your reader was like, and then came in with their line, maybe because they just weren't familiar with it or because they were like trying to be a good actor for you. But if we're only looking at you, I think that both of you would have been better served to go like, hey, I need you to pick it up. Or like, can you please? Or, like with a cherry on top, like sort of however, polite you need to be about it. But if it's your tape and the camera's only looking at you, then ask for what you need in order to give a good performance. And I think that the clearest example of that, that I can give is that here we've got Melissa's tape, 1 minute and 43, including her slate. Christina's tape is 1 minute and 33, including her slate. Eve's tape, where she's recording with herself, and so she's constrained by the technology, 1 minute and 10. Candy's tape, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Right, enormous long pauses. After like she's taking very, very long pauses before every one of her lines. Her reader's taking very long pauses.
His name isn't even Phoenix. Now you can still only groom him.
Yeah, and so it's lovely. Like when she's taking the pause, it's really full. Like she's filling it up, and it reads as a character choice. That's the kind of audition where because she's not advertising that there's anything technically wrong with it. It's not like we can see her struggling with her lines. She's really taking her time. A casting director might say, okay, do it again, but like take the air out, or just pick it up a little bit.
Yes, sky's the limit.
Pause.
What stupid name is that?
Pause.
A real name.
Pause. And so just know that when we're watching a tape, the pauses mean something. And so you have to be careful about when you use them, so that when there's a pause, we're like, oh, that's emotional information. It's supposed to be emotional information. And if everything is emotional information, then it starts to just all be the same, right? And we stop registering them. We stop going, oh, that's information about like, this is important, or there's something that she doesn't want to say, or, right? So your impulse candy is so good. I would just say be selective about when you do it, because like you filled those really well. It's just that there were so many of them, that you ended up with a tape that was a full minute longer than several of the other tapes. And I think that's probably too long. That's probably like too much space here. And for reference, let me show you a piece of Eve's where she's just clipping through it because she's like, I gotta get my voice out before I talk to myself again.
I knew he was from somewhere around here. He'd just gotten out of his net. I think he didn't like where he was. Georgie, I don't know if he liked it or not. He jumped the fence to get a I don't think so. I think he just sees fences as a big challenge.
And so it's cool, hey? Like, it actually works. Like, it actually reads as a character choice. It doesn't seem like, oh, she's doing this weird technical thing. It seems like, oh, wow, I wouldn't have thought about like clipping through the scene like that. But there's something really interesting about it. Like, it's, it's a different kind of Amy. It's a different kind of like, okay, come on, just like get over yourself, and like, yeah, you have feels about it, but like, come and help me. It reads as everything is going to read as part of the character unless you apologize or tell them different. So just don't. Does anybody have questions about that? I know we ran it just like a smidge over 4 o'clock. Okay. I wish we had time to workshop some of it. But I've got the tapes, and I can always bring that back later in the week. If we've got like a little chunk of extra time. Again, hey, can I get everybody to like give like props, like here, oh, in sign language, instead of like clapping, which like Zoom would just like break it, in sign language, this is clapping. So can I get everybody to like give a round of applause to our 4 people who were brave enough to do tapes? Yeah, tape people, it's really vulnerable. Like you did a thing knowing it would be imperfect, and that then I would talk to you about the imperfect parts of it, and you let us do it anyway. Like, rock on. Yeah, you. I don't think that I would have had the intestinal fortitude to do that. Certainly not when I was Christina and Eve's age, and probably not even with like in the like 10 years into my career, I still would be like, no, I'm fine. So. Thanks for being vulnerable with us. All right. I will see some of you tomorrow with Sandra Ebner, hopefully. Nice to see everyone. Sandy, nice to see you. It's been a long time. We're settling into the fall. The more rainy days we get, the more people might come hang out with us. And I'm going to be sending this out, information on the class out to some talent agents sometime this week. So. New Actors Challenge coming Wednesday or Thursday. You'll get a chance to do another one of these tapes. For next week, should you so desire. Maybe I'll pick something with like a more gender open character, Kevin, so that you don't have to play Amy. Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Caden.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday, Dayton.
Happy birthday, Caden. Bye.
Bye.